Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name's TJ Erickson. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I've been getting a lot of questions online on social media, on YouTube, asking about my LiveScope settings. So I'm not going to be showing a lot of fish catching, things like that. All I'm going to do is sit down, do a little more detailed look of how I set up my LiveScope, different settings that I change when I'm going from lake to lake, and a lot of those other details when you're either first getting your LiveScope or once you've had it for a little while and you just want to get it dialed in a little bit better. So to start, we're just going to start at the home screen. Here you can set charts, you can go to the different types of charts, you can go to the sonar, go to your frequently used Panoptics, a lot of different things. You can customize whatever ones you want. Typically, I don't create a bunch of different customized ones because honestly, all I'm using it for is my LiveScope. Every once in a while, maybe I'll look at the map, but I typically use my Humminbird for my mapping. Now, one of the things that I do is I set my number. On the side, there's numbers 1 through 4, and you can save those as kind of like presets. And all I have it, when I press number 1, I get to my LiveScope screen. That is the one I have it on 99% of the time, so really that's all I need it for. But I do have number 2 set as a map if I do want to take a quick look to see where I'm at, look at some just general contours, but I find the Humminbird map is much better. Bottom buttons, back nav, home, home, mark, and menu. And the main ones that I use, so home, that will just bring you back to home. You can get to settings from there, but you can also, when I go to 1, go back to my LiveScope screen, you can go to menu down there as well, and that will bring you to some of the same stuff, but it will get you more so into specifically the LiveScope settings. So when you go to menu here, you have a lot of different things. Gain, that is something that I will change every now and again, and that one is also on the main screen. They put it on here. You can decrease your gain, you can increase your gain, and you can just see what that does as you decrease and increase. So that is one of the things that I will change. Probably the most is my gain. The next thing is you go forward range. Again, that can also be changed right here. So you can go plus minus right there, but also the plus and minus on the main buttons as well on the side of the screen. So I mostly use the buttons on the side for increasing and decreasing my distance out. The next thing you'll see, transmit on and off. I always keep that to on. Edit overlays, I don't do a lot of that. So when I go back to menu, depth range, again, that is shown on your main screen as well. If you press it, it goes to auto, or if you click it, then it turns it off auto and just at whatever depth you want. And you can increase and decrease the depth as well. I almost always have it on auto. That way, when I'm changing depth, it will change automatically. When I go back to my menu, pause sonar is obviously, that does the same thing. If you touch the screen, it will pause it. You want to look at it or create a waypoint, or here it says you can measure distance as well. So you can tell exactly how far away you are if you want to do that. But with the markers up at the top, it is pretty easy to tell that as well. So I don't do a lot with those. Back to menu, Sonar Setup. That is where you're going to get into a lot of kind of your details. When I go into Sonar Setup, appearance, a lot of different things on here. You can choose your color scheme. I really like this one because it can show, and I'll explain this a little bit later, it can show a little bit more how dense or how big the fish is based on it, and I can just see that a little better. The base one is this amber, the copper is similar. So you see a lot of the amber one, which I do like as well, but I have found that the blue is my favorite because you have that blue and it really sticks out, especially when I'm filming. It can be a very good contrast, so I can see the fish, I can see my bait, especially on maybe some of those sunnier days. So that's the color scheme that I like. Trails, that is what shows up when you move your bait. Oh, there's actually a fish on me right there. So yeah, as you can see the trails, there is something that's left behind fast. So basically it means it disappears fast. It shows where your bait has been. So if you want to see where a fish has been moving, you go to medium, you can see it goes a little bit. And if you go to slow, it really shows a lot of trail. I keep mine off because I like to keep my screen with the least amount of clutter. So if we go back, trails, grid overlay, that just means if you want your lines showing up on top. I don't like that. Again, I like my screen to have the least amount of stuff as possible. So I keep my grid overlay off. You have color gain. Color gain is one of the things that I will change as well. It kind of depends on, I like to keep my color gain up a little bit higher. When you go lower, you can see, so especially if I'm maybe chasing some bigger fish, I might turn my color gain down a little bit. What that does is it shows how much it fills in. You can see, you start seeing more red, and typically the red means it's a denser or a bigger fish. So when I go down, you can see how that changes. I like to keep mine in that 70 to 80 range, especially when I'm out chasing panfish, chasing something a little smaller. Sometimes if I'm chasing bigger fish, I'll bring it down a little bit more so I can tell the size a little bit easier. If something is a little more orange, it's either out of the cone a little bit or it's a little bit smaller fish. If it's more red, then it's a little bit bigger or directly underneath that cone. So I like to keep mine 70 to 80. So that is color gain. When you go to bottom fill, what the bottom fill does, if you turn it on, it will show you like that where the bottom is. Some people like that so then they can see stuff on the bottom a little bit easier. I've gotten pretty good at reading it so I know what I'm looking for. So I like to have that off, again, just to have the least amount of clutter on the screen. So I have my bottom fill off. Scroll history, I always hide that. So that was under appearance. Again, TVG, I always have TVG off. If you go to installation, once you get into installation, I really don't do a lot with that. You can calibrate your compass, and it supposedly helps to kind of orient your LiveScope. The main thing you're gonna need in here is orientation. Orientation forward. So you can either go auto, and what that does, it depends on where you're clicking your transducer, it will automatically change. You can have it in down. You got a pike coming in, I think, but I'm wrapped up. So as you can see, down shows you a little bit wider view. It kind of shifts that cone from being more sideways like this to just shifting it like this. So you're seeing wider down directly underneath you. So you can see on both sides a little bit. So even there, you can see that fish. That's 2, 4. That's a pretty decent sized fish. You can see it spans almost 3 feet, maybe a 30 plus inch pike maybe. It'd be interesting to see if we could catch it and see what it actually is. All right, moving on. Typically what I like to use, so when I'm in my Sonar Setup, installation again, orientation, I like to keep mine in forward mode. And basically when I'm in forward mode, I still get a little bit of that down view, but then if I want to just move it out and see where fish are at a little bit farther depth, then I can move out to 90, 100 feet if I want, and I can always zoom it back in to get a little bit more detailed view, a little bit closer view. So that's what I like to do for my orientation. Going back to Sonar Setup, noise reject, I usually keep noise reject on high. I can show you a little bit what it looks like with each. Low, medium, high. If it's off, there's a lot of that noise. Like I said, I almost always keep mine on high. I haven't run into issues where I'm not able to pick stuff up because it is not high enough. If you are not really seeing it and you want a little bit more, I typically will turn my gain up instead of turning the noise reject off. Again, that overlay data, it can show you the voltage, the speed, time of day, that kind of stuff. Shows you a lot of different depths that you can have on water temp depth. I usually just keep that on. It clutters up the screen a little bit, but it's nice to have a lot of those. So there you have a lot of information on a lot of the different settings. If I didn't cover something that you would like to see covered, just put it in the comments and maybe I'll do another one sometime. Some of these settings I haven't really touched for a long time, but the settings that I use most often are: 1, I use my hotkeys, the numbers off to the side. I have 1 as my LiveScope, 2 as my map. Then I use my gain. So depending on the lake or how cloudy or how clean it is or how far I'm going out, the farther out, the higher the gain, the bigger the fish, the lower the gain. Gain just really gathers more information. It does clutter the screen, so if you have the gain up too high, it will clutter the screen a little bit. But I like to have my gain anywhere that 50 to 70% depending on what I'm fishing for and the style. And again, the lake clarity as well. This one's a relatively clear lake, but it has a little bit of murkiness to it. So I have that gain in about that 67 right now, and it seems to be pretty good. I will go back into the color gain, and I will turn that up or down depending on what I'm looking, but more often I will just change my gain. I use my hotkeys, I use my gain a lot, and I will also change color gain if I'm still not getting quite what I would like to see. So just a basic overview, I keep my gain anywhere between 55 and sometimes 70%. I like to keep it in that 65 range. My color gain, I will also keep between 50 and 80. I like to keep that around that 75 range as well. Noise reject, I keep on high. TVG, I keep off. Some people will turn it on low as well. And I like to have my color scheme on blue. So those are some of the settings that I use and some of the stuff that I change from lake to lake most often. Again, I run it in forward mode so I can zoom out and zoom in. So there you have it. A lot of my LiveScope settings, things that I use from day to day. If you found value in this video, I'd love for you to subscribe. There's gonna be more content coming out both about LiveScope and just in general fishing techniques and tips and tricks and some fish catching. So if you'd like to see some more of that, like I said, subscribe and we'll see you next time.